Okay. 2-1. And we are rolling here. How we doing, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to another Fourth and Inches video. We will be breaking down all aspects of the big move that just came out, the Stefon Diggs trade from the Buffalo Bills to the Houston Texans. We're going to talk about all the fantasy implications and dynasty implications, what adjustments I'm going to be making to my rankings, how that's going to affect my guy Josh Allen right here, and full in-depth video, all the fantasy players affected by this, and kind of my thought process on what to expect. If you have not subscribed to the channel already, please do so. It is the best way to show me some support, as well as stay in tune with all of the content I have coming out. A lot of mock draft content right now, leading into the NFL draft later this month. But yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into this news. So, first and foremost, Stefon Diggs gets traded to the Houston Texans for a second round pick. Okay? Now, if you didn't catch it, it is a 2025 second round pick, not even a usable pick for this year's 2024 NFL draft. And it seems like Buffalo just keeps losing weapons. So, let's go ahead and start this discussion with the Buffalo Bills and how I expect that to kind of play out. Okay. If we're looking from a non-fantasy view for just 1 second, the Buffalo Bills went on that run at the end of last year, right? They won like 6 of 8 games in the final run, something like that. They had a shift in their offense, right? They were starting to run the ball really effectively. James Cook started having some good weeks. And they were mixing in a lot of running backs, but they were running the ball. Created some play action, some options for them to move the ball in against zone. Dalton Kincaid started to show some signs of progression there. So maybe they think that they can win ball games without Diggs. Because if you look at that stretch where they won those games, he was very ineffective, right? He, from a fantasy perspective and even from an NFL just production perspective, he tanked through the back half of the year. I think he had maybe one good game. A lot of his production came in those first 6-7 weeks of the 23 NFL season. So I think that's some of the logic. Like, hey, we've proven we can win games without him. The second part is money, right? Now, technically, this affects the cap negatively if you look into the details, but they were going to be paying the guy a lot of money. And, he would have been off the books after 2024 season, and 2025 they could move on, but if you look beyond that, it's got to be the behavioral stuff. He was causing problems in the locker room. It was a lemon that started turning sour, and there was no way they were going to turn it into anything resembling lemonade, right? It was a sour lemon. You've seen so many clips of Stefon Diggs, just his body language towards Josh Allen, giving him tons of beef. I'm hearing locker room stories. The guy's just, call it ego, call it whatever you will, wasn't great for the locker room. And I think this Buffalo Bills team just finally said, we're moving on. Okay. Now, as a whole, I think this is actually a great thing for all parties. I think the only negative for Buffalo is I would have preferred they got more out of it. And it's obviously going, I would have loved to see, I'm sure the Bills would have loved to see him go anywhere other than Houston, right? Or a team that is on the up and up right now. So let's take the Buffalo Bills for just a second. Gabe Davis also leaves in free agency. He goes and signs with Jacksonville Jaguars. They do bring in Curtis Samuel from Washington. I really, really like that addition. The offensive his name is escaping me at this exact moment, but the offensive coordinator for Buffalo worked with Curtis Samuel. They both had time in Carolina together. And he's a gadgety guy, great against zone. I think he'll be used in this offense well, and I actually like that pickup in fantasy. His ADP is really, really low. I just picked him up in a dynasty startup draft, I believe in the 19th round. I think he's a great value. He'll continue to climb as we get further into the offseason, into the summer. So just keep an eye on it as his ADP changes. I'm sure he's already climbing just with the Stefon Diggs news. They did bring in Mac Hollins. You want to say he's better or worse than Gabe Davis? Probably worse, I guess. He's older, bigger guy, though. They have Justin Shorter on the team, who was hurt all last year, but maybe he could turn into something. And Khalil Shakur, who just hasn't really been he's had flashes here or there maybe in the first 2 seasons, but This team is certainly drafting a wide receiver in the first round. I believe they pick at 26, 27, and they're certainly going to be taking a receiver there. So stay tuned for my Dynasty rookie mocks and Dynasty rankings. I'll have more information on that as we get closer to the NFL draft, and then, of course, post-draft when it starts being rookie mock season. So let's talk lastly. I don't think this really affects anything for James Cook, other than maybe defenses feel a little bit more confident putting people in the box and try to stop the run a little bit more. But Josh Allen being Josh Allen and just being able to, free up time, extend plays, escape, get out of the pocket. Like his ability to extend plays, I think is still to James Cook's benefit. So they should still be able to run the ball. I currently, I've had Josh Allen number 1 in my rankings in Dynasty for 2 years now. He's been number 1. I think this lack of skill, lack of weapons on the offense for Buffalo in some ways does worry me a bit more. So I have moved him back. Not a lot. He is now my quarterback 3, only behind now Patrick Mahomes 1, Jalen Hurts 2. I still could have him at 2 easily. And depending on who they draft and how that plays out, like he could still be Josh Allen, guys. He's still very, very good. I don't think if you're not looking to sell Josh Allen, if anything, maybe you can buy him a little bit cheaper than normal because people are getting worried. But I don't think you need to be overly concerned about Josh Allen. He can still make it happen with his legs too when he needs to. Okay. Jumping over, though, to the Houston Texans. So if we're talking about Houston, let's start with the wide receiver room, okay? Nico Collins, Tank Dell, both very viable fantasy options last year. If you drafted him, you were very happy you did, whether it was Tank Dell in rookie drafts because he was maybe going in the 3rd round, or if it was Nico Collins who was going in the late teens and in startups, you're extremely happy, right? Obviously, Nico Collins finishing as the wide receiver 10 last year in PPR. Tank obviously ended up like falling with the injury he had at the end of the year, but wide receiver 15 at one time. Point being, a rookie quarterback in CJ Stroud in his first year producing 2 top 15 wide receivers. That's phenomenal. I mean, that's incredible. And Dalton Schultz, I believe, tight end 11, tight end 10, still having a very viable year. Running back was the main issue last year. Obviously, Singletary had some useful weeks at the end of the year. They bring in Joe Mixon. And that's where we're going to start. This team can run the ball. Joe Mixon is clearly an upgrade. He's going to get some valuable touches. He's going to get some receiving work. I don't think Dameon Pierce is a threat for his touches at all. As long as the guy can stay healthy, I think he'll be a very viable fantasy option. I love him in ADP and startup drafts right now, and he's somebody you should be targeting on your boards. But not something that's going to change this offense dynamics too much. They're still going to be able to sling it, and CJ Stroud is incredibly accurate quarterback. Stefon Diggs comes to the Houston Texans. This team is immediately in the discussion for number 1 in their division and a real contender. Nico Collins, I think, takes the bigger hit here. I really do. I think Tank Dell is going to be less affected. They utilized him in different ways. He's working out of the slot. He can also stretch the field. I'm actually less concerned about Tank Dell than I am Nico. I think Nico takes a bigger hit here. He was also going as early as the end of the 3rd turn into the early 4th and 4th round in Dynasty startups right now. Something like the wide receiver 10, 11, 12 off the board in Dynasty. I like it. It felt a little rich a few weeks ago, but now with Diggs going there, if people had Dynasty startups this time of the year, they're feeling really bad about taking Nico where they did. I don't know if wide receiver 10 like last year is in the realm of possibilities. It could be, but it feels more like he's got maybe more of a floor of like top 24 or worse now. We don't know what the distribution will look like. Dalton Schultz is very good on this team too. They're going to probably put up a lot of points and spread the ball out, but you don't know whose week it's going to be. Diggs coming in, I'm going to kind of put him in that same category. Like if you ask me who of the three do I think could actually end up producing the most and have the best wide receiver finish of the three, theoretically, it is Tank Dell. It is. Nico Collins going, like I said, in the end of the third, fourth round, he's probably going to start falling to like the sixth. He's probably going to be falling to the sixth round. Diggs was already going there. I'm not going to say he's going to climb in ADP, but he definitely won't fall anymore. He might stay in a similar range to Nico. Then people are drafting based on their preference. Tank Dell was going in the fifth-ish. I think he'll probably stay there, and I think he'd be my preferred pick at this point of the three. Obviously, they're hoping Diggs can go there, reset, come in with some fresh energy, and not be a knucklehead. Obviously, they're not bringing him there to cause problems in the wide receiver room or bitch to CJ Stroud, complain to CJ Stroud that that he's not getting the ball thrown to him. So, and lastly, let's talk about CJ Stroud. So, I have CJ. He's been my QB7 in Dynasty. I think with the additions they made, obviously they have a solid offensive line too. They brought in Joe Mixon, Laramie Tunsil at left tackle. With the Diggs addition, though, and Joe Mixon, I think you just got to give CJ a bump. Going into his second year, he's going to have 3 more and potentially a fifth-year option. He could have 4 more years with Houston. There's a lot to be excited about. And for those reasons, I have bumped him up to my QB4. He is only behind Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Jalen Hurts. He has now been moved ahead of Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert. So my QB4, CJ Stroud, I think he'll climb through the year. I think he could surpass a Jalen Hurts. I think he could surpass potentially even a Josh Allen, and we'll see. He goes and throws 40-plus touchdown passes this year. It's going to be hard to not have him as a QB2, QB3 in your rankings. Probably only behind the GOAT right now, Patrick Mahomes. And not my GOAT. I'm just saying. The guy's elite, obviously. So, in a nutshell, guys, I'm probably fading Diggs. I think if you have him, and there's a lot of hype, and people are buying into Stroud having him at the Rock now, it's a 1-year deal essentially. He's 30 years old, 31, turning 31, maybe 32. I think he's turning 31. I think if you could get out of him, I would. I don't know if you're going to be able to sell Nico. I think you might be able to sell on some hype Diggs right now. I'm probably holding Tank. But if I'm selling Diggs, if I'm a contending team and I need him right now and I'm going for the ship, okay, keep him. But if you're kind of mid-rebuild, or maybe you just have a really deep wide receiver room on your dynasty roster, or redraft for that matter, if I could sell him for a comparable wide receiver and a future pick, I would do that. If I can get, a late first plus, if I can get maybe multiple twos, because it seems very likely. Ask yourself this question. We get halfway, 3/4, or through the end of the 2024 NFL season. Is it more or less likely that you can sell Stefon Diggs for a higher price than you probably currently can right now? Okay. Range of outcomes? Let's say he has a wide receiver 2-3 season. He's getting older. He won't even potentially be in Houston after this year. I think the price that you're going to be able to get for him is just going to continue to decline, realistically. And also, guys, he's been regressing. He regressed in Buffalo. We don't know how he'll do in Houston, but you don't expect him to get better when he's turning 31, 32, 33, right? He's getting into his Larry Fitzgerald years, and he's going to start getting contracts and money that are appropriate to that. So I think right now is a window, and I think if you can move him for a pretty good price and some hype and replace it with some youth, future picks for your team, I would be looking to do something like that right now. Nico, unfortunately, if you just drafted him in any startups, you're really bummed about it right now. If you got him, you probably just got to kind of hold. If there's some spike weeks and opportunities to sell, maybe. But he's going to be a guy going into a contract year. Yeah, like I said, I would prefer to have Joe Mixon from this team. I would prefer to have Tank Dell from this team. And I think Dalton Schultz is a fine streamer at tight end. Likely range of outcomes in that QB 10 range again. And obviously got a 2-year extension there. So a little bit of a safe play in Dynasty. But yeah, those are my thoughts as far as the Diggs trade, guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I mean, did I miss something with Buffalo? Did I miss something with Houston? Do you think I'm being a little too firm on these views? Like, I'm a little bit more conservative. I think the floors go down and the ceilings have gone down in some ways. And, I can't say the range of outcomes has theoretically changed too much in my mind as far as Diggs, whether he was in Buffalo or not. So let me know what you guys think, but I appreciate you guys being here. And if you stuck around, like and subscribe to the video, guys. Best way to support my channel. And I appreciate you being here. Take care.